Alright, today we got the 8.2.0 public test build up and live, and is containing many new updates to killers such as the Dredge, the Nemesis, and the Doctor. But most importantly, we are getting our new crossover chapter with Castlevania, containing the new killer, the Dark Lord, aka Dracula, and the new survivor, Trevor Belmont. Each containing their own 3 unique perks, and we will be going through all of these changes as well as the new killer and survivor additions. So, this is my second time actually doing one of these videos, and the first time, apparently, shockingly, you guys actually really liked it. So, here we are again, and hopefully this one will be just as informative. So, kicking off the changes, we are going to be starting with Dredge, who is getting a whole slew of nice quality of life and just enhancement changes to his base kit. Beginning with his increased movement speed while charging Reign of Darkness being changed from 3.68 meters per second to 3.8 meters a second. Not too noticeable, but will help you in some anti-loops while holding your ability, but more importantly, he is also getting increased teleport speed when outside of Nightfall, changed from 12 meters a second to 19 meters a second, which is slightly over a solid 50% increase to his movement speed. That is wild. Next up, they've reduced the teleport cooldown outside of Nightfall to 10 seconds from 12 seconds, a nice little 2-second enhancement. They've decreased the time it takes to break out of a locker from 3 seconds to 2.25 seconds, which is nearly the calendar add-on built in. They've increased the charge rate of Nightfall per injured survivor per second from 0.75 charges a second to 1 charge a second. They've also reduced the volume of Dredge's sound effects to make it harder to detect during Nightfall. Then they've also adjusted several add-ons to adjust for these certain balance changes, as they are mostly just implicating some of the effects of some add-ons into the base kit. DevNote says we've increased the Dredge's movement speed both while charging its power and while teleporting outside of Nightfall to give it a slight boost in both strength and feel. The Dredge could have difficulty taking advantage of the reduced visibility in Nightfall due to the loud sound effects when approaching, so we've reduced their volume. We've also incorporated some of the effects of some must-have add-ons into the base kit, then toned them down accordingly. Also, not having a absolute loud-ass vacuum playing when you're in the Nightfall would be quite nice, because sure, you're undetectable and you have no terror radius, but survivors can already see you in a much more highlighted sense, and also they hear a vacuum approaching them, so it's not as effective. So this is a nice change. Alright, so next up we have the Doctor with a few changes, but meaningful ones. They've changed it so now that if the static blast does not hit anybody after activation, the cooldown will instead be 30 seconds, and if you do hit somebody, it will instead be 45 seconds, meanwhile the old base cooldown used to be 60 seconds flat. They've also increased the movement speed while charging Static Blast from 1.16 meters per second to 2.99 meters per second. They've also adjusted the Static Blast cooldown add-ons accordingly just to accommodate for the increased effect. DevNote says the Doctor's Static Blast can be a helpful tool for players who struggle to find survivors, but the long cooldown makes it punishing to miss. We reduced the Static Blast cooldown slightly if a survivor is affected, and reduced it much further if nobody is in range. We've also increased his movement speed while charging a Static Blast to make it feel better to use. To be honest, this is just honestly a nice little buff. On top of the old Doctor buffs that he got a few patches ago, which really made him shine a lot more without certain add-ons, this is going to be a nice little final touch to make him fit in nicely. Alright, so moving on to the Nemesis, they have decreased the requirement for reaching mutation rate 2 from 6 points to 5 points, meaning that this will now allow Nemesis to reach mutation rate 2 after hitting the same survivor 3 times with a tentacle, meaning that the reduced amount that they gain from the secondary hits will still get him to tier 2 instead of just barely not making it. They have also increase the hindered penalty duration when infecting a survivor from 0.25 seconds to a whopping 2 whole seconds, meaning this will last for the entire duration of the speed boost that they get. They have also adjusted the Liquor Tongue and Marvin's Blood add-ons to adjust for the changes towards the hindered duration as well as the mutation rate increase. However, it's worth noting that the Liquor Tongue, rather than being less than you might think, it actually adds another 3 whole seconds to the hindered status effect. So we're going to seeing a lot more use of this add-on. DevNote says to help him get up and running, we've reduced the requirement for the Nemesis to reach mutation rate 2. This effectively means the Nemesis can reach mutation rate 2 in the first 3 tentacle strikes on the same survivor. The hindered effect caused by infecting a survivor was previously very short, making its effect inconsequential. We've extended the hindered effect to last throughout the speed boost the survivor gains from being hit with a tentacle, reducing the amount of distance they gain.
This one is a huge buff, personally, because the hindered status effect that you receive from being contaminated is 20%. And like I said before, they made it so that the liquor tongue adds an additional 3 seconds. So you get 5 seconds of a 20% hindered effect after infecting someone, which will really slow them down. Alright, moving on to the new killer, the Dark Lord, also known as Dracula. He has the unique ability to shapeshift between 3 different forms, starting off with his vampiric form, which is his base form. While he's in this form, he works like any other killer. He has the ability to conjure a line of hellfire pillars. These pillars can go over low obstacles such as pallets, windows, or just low obstacles in general, and they will damage any survivor for a 1 health state if they manage to connect with them. They go into a straight line, and they do take a sec to charge it up, but you have the ability to get some long range coverage. Next up, you have his bat shapeshift form. While in this form, you move at an increased speed, you have the undetectable status effect, and survivors around the entire map will constantly hear a bat screeching sound effect, but they will not be able to directionally tell where you are until you are within a certain distance. While also in this form, you're allowed to float over any low vault windows or pallets if they are pulled down, and you also have the ability to teleport to any vault locations, be it pallet or window, at any time you wish, but it has a long cooldown. Doing so will teleport you to them, in a similar way Dredge would, where you can go through any floors or obstacles while doing it. Also, it's worth noting that while in the bat form, you will not be able to see any survivors physically, but you will still be able to see their blood marks and their scratch marks at the same time, similar to how the spirit's haunting works. And finally, they have the wolf form. In the wolf form, you obviously take on the form of a wolf. You have a third-person perspective. While in the wolf form, it is much more of a tracking type of form. You see all scratch marks at a brighter intensity, and also you see all blood pools at a brighter intensity. Also, while in this form, all survivors will constantly leave behind orbs periodically, and you can only see them within a certain distance. Collecting these orbs will give you a temporary speed boost of, I believe, a 5% haste for a few seconds, and also they will point in the direction that the survivor is when they created them. You also have the ability to pounce. This works similar to how a Wesker Virulent Bound work, where you get 2 charges, both of which are able to injure, and the second one is able to be followed up immediately after the first one. It is worth noting, though, that after the first one, the second one will happen automatically just shortly after the first one, so you better be ready to get the next hit off if you missed the first one, or if you're just using it to re-angle. Pounce has a very long cooldown, so another thing worth noting is that every orb you collect from the ones that are generated from survivors will greatly decrease the cooldown of your ability, allowing you to get it back quicker. It's also, one final thing worth noting is that any survivor performing a fast vault within a certain distance of you while you are in the wolf form, you will receive Killer Instinct showing the location for a few seconds. So, moving on to the new perks for both the new killer and the new survivor. Starting with the killer perks, we are going to be beginning with Human Greed. You see the auras of unopened chests, and survivor auras are revealed for 3 seconds when they enter an 8-meter range. You gain the ability to kick chests to close them. This ability is a 60-second cooldown, and survivors unlock these chests 50% faster. Well, I will also note that the 50% faster bonus is not actually working currently, but I'm sure that'll be fixed in the live build. Next up, we have Dominance. The first time each totem and each chest is interacted with by a survivor, the totem or chest is blocked by the entity for 8 seconds, and the aura of blocked totems and chests are revealed to you in white. Finally, we have Hex Wretched Fate. After one generator has been repaired, a random dull totem becomes a Hex totem and curses the Obsession. The Obsession suffers a 33% repair speed penalty, and they can also see the Hex totem's aura within 12 meters. Honestly, these perks aren't that great, but I could see some pretty good potential with them if you pair them with other perks and do it in the correct way. Next up, we have the Survivor perks for Trevor Belmont. First, we have Ives of Belmont. When a generator is completed, the aura of the killer is revealed to you for 3 seconds, and also, whenever a killer's aura is revealed to you for a specified amount of time, that time is increased by 2 seconds, so this is kind of like the Survivor's version of Lethal Pursuer. Next up, we have Exaltation, an interesting perk. Stunning the killer with a pallet upgrades your current held item rarity to the next tier, and then recharges 25% of the item's maximum charges. The rarity is not kept at the end of the trial, and it has a 30-second cooldown. Very interesting. Finally, we have Moments of Glory. This perk activates after you open or rummage through 2 chests, and when you become injured, you also become broken. Automatically heal 1 health state after 60 seconds, and then this perk deactivates. The effect will be cancelled if you enter the dying state, and this perk will not activate if you are already suffering from the broken status effect. All very interesting perks, and will fill their own niches, but we'll see. I believe Moment of Glory could be a little bit faster, though in my personal perspective, I would say if they buff it down to 30 seconds, that'd be too quick, but I'm a little worried that's what they're going to do, and then we're going to have to sit around for 2 months waiting for them to be like, oh wait, that's too much. Let's do the usual thing we do and put it at the median and be 45 seconds. We'll see, right? I'm making that bet.
Alright, and finally we're going to be going over the Survivor perk changes, as there are no killer perk changes, just the Survivor ones. It's a bit of a list, and they're all kind of similar and in the same vein, so I'm just going to quickly go through them very fast here. Blast Mine, requirement of the generator progress is being reduced by 10%. Chemical Trap, required generator progress is being reduced by 30%, but it's also having its duration cut in half from 120 seconds to 60 seconds. Dance With Me, the cooldown is being reduced from 40 to 20. Deception, same, is getting its cooldown from 40 to 20. Diversion is having the amount of time required in the terror radius reduced from 30 seconds to 20 seconds. Flashbang is having its required percentage of a generator completed down from 50 to 40. Mirrored Illusion activates only after 20% of repair progress. And Wiretap is also being reduced from 50 to 40%. It's basically just a lot of minor updates to some perks that have a certain condition that needs to be met to activate them, mostly durational based. And finally, as the last few little updates, they're removing the fact that prestige levels are going to be able to be shown in the pre-game lobby. DevNote says seeing a high prestige causes some players to feel intimidated and leave the lobby. This has a negative effect on matchmaking and discourages players from playing their favorite survivors. Prestige levels will no longer be shown in pre-game lobby. They will remain visible after the match as ended, so you can show off your accomplishments. Next up, we have an interesting one, is hook stages. They are increasing the duration of each hook phase by 10 seconds from 60 seconds to 70 seconds. DevNote says some time ago the total repair time of generators was increased. For the most part, this is a positive change, though it had the side effect of making camping more effective. Focusing on repairs was the best way for the other survivors to counter camping, but the repairs taking longer, the survivors aren't able to get as much done before the hook survivor is sacrificed. To combat this, we are increasing the duration of each hook phase to 70 seconds. This will allot more time for the survivors to repair if the killer chooses to camp the hook survivor. And finally, a small update to scratch marks. All scratch marks will be slightly more visible. DevNote says scratch marks are an important tracking tool but could be hard to see on some surfaces. We reviewed each map to ensure that they are adequately visible. I actually don't have to provide a visual because they provided one for me, so here you go. Take a look at that and say what you think. One last thing for the map is they are updating the Midwich Elementary School. They've removed the breakable walls in the bathrooms, and they have also altered the layout of the hallways to reduce long-range visibility. Then they've added objects near exit gates to reduce visibility. DevNote says the hallways used to have long sight lines, making it easy to spot approaching killers and difficult for survivors to hide. We have moved some objects around to limit the hallways. We've also added objects to obstruct the views of the exit gates to make it harder to stand in the center of the map and monitor both gates at once.
Alright, and that'll do it for the 8.2.0 public test build patch notes. There was a lot to cover, to be honest, in terms of a lot of nice benefits for both sides of Killer and Survivor. And also, the new chapter for Castlevania is looking pretty awesome, honestly. This took a lot longer to edit than I thought it should have, but that's okay. I managed to get it out to you guys, so as usual, if you guys like this kind of thing, I will once again be cringe and ask you to subscribe, because that really, honestly, it encourages me to keep going at these things. Leave a comment letting me know what you guys think. If you guys like these kind of things, I'll keep going with them, just like I did before. And I hope you guys enjoyed this one as much as you did the last one. I tried to do the best I could to make it as equally informative while showing you all the minor details, and brushing over the parts that didn't need to be dwelled on too hard. Anyways, if you guys like it, I'll keep going, and I'll see you guys in the next one.